people were saying that the coffee has been sold are talking rubbish, but it's good that they are talking rubbish because then we shall know them by their fruits. It's good to tell such a lie. Really, it's good for us because we are going to prove them wrong, and you people, you should punish them for telling you such useless lies. The most shameful part were those who were tribalizing the effort. It is criminal to do so. It is good, however, that they have come out and said that MUSEVENI will be stealing part of the coffee if UCD is abolished. UCD is now abolished. We shall now see which coffee MUSEVENI will steal. If there will be no coffee stolen by MUSEVENI, as there will be no coffee stolen, the people of Uganda must realize the shallowness of these groups and punish them politically. Although I think we should also punish them even legally. Finally, I must comment on the rotten opportunism of these parasites that is also dangerous. Lack of patriotism and possible corruption and criminality by some actors who can endanger our future if they are not firmly dealt with. As I have told you many times, the NRM started as a student movement in the 1960s, especially around 1965. Previously, most of us had been associated with the then existing sectarian parties of DP, UPC, and Kabaka Yeka. By 1965, and subsequently, we realized that those old parties had very wrong positions on principles of ideology and also on socio-economic issues. On ideology, they believed in the politics of identity, religion, tribes, and gender chauvinism. And on socio-economic issues, they believed in the strategy of neo-colonial dependency and the elite line of working mainly for the few and not bothering about the many, especially in wealth creation. We, on the other hand, came to believe in the ideological principles of patriotism, love Uganda because you need it for your prosperity, Pan-Africanism, love Africa because you need it for your prosperity, and socio-economic transformation, which means metamorphosis from the livelihood of Jajja, Tekwaro, to modernization, and also the principle of democracy. Within the principle of socio-economic transformation, we maintained the mass line, rather than the elite line of only serving the few and forgetting the many. The colonial and the neo-colonial economy of that time was, for instance, being described as an economy of the three C's and 3 T's. Wabewo awandika ensonga zino byenjogedde oluvannyuma bifunze mu Luganda, simanyi mutedde ku ani oyo ensegumire okay. wandika ensonga onazifunza oluvannyuma mu Luganda. The colonial and the neo-colonial economy of that time, you can also give him the copy of my speech so that he can follow it better. The colonial and the neo-colonial economy of that time was, for instance, being described as an economy of the 3 C's and the 3 T's. These were coffee, cotton, and copper, as well as tea, tobacco, and tourism. By 1962, this money economy was apparently covering only 9% of the homesteads. The rest, 91%, were in the non-money subsistence economy of only okora echida chonka, teach me each keken, working only for the stomach. Those colonial and neo-colonial economies were being described as enclave, i.e. island economies, meaning that a small island of money economy is surrounded by a sea of underdevelopment, a no-money economy. By the end of the 1960s, our student movement was clear that an enclave economy was a disaster for Africa and the third world. We are to build a new type of economy, which I will point out later. We indeed had started mobilization of Jajja, Tekwaro, traditional cattle keepers, Abadisa, right from 1966, walking on foot, kuraro to kuraro. We had even tactically started working with the UPC to see whether we could implement part of our vision. However, the internal weaknesses of these sectarian groups came to fruition. Kubanga bali bitwali tukola nabo bali banafu. The people we were trying to work with, the UPC, the DP, we are all weak. They couldn't maintain stability. So while we had started working with the UPC 1969, 70, you will hear what happened because of their internal weaknesses. However, the internal weaknesses of these sectarian groups came to fruition. Idi Amin, an illiterate member of the Obote faction of 1966, unprincipled crisis. Ebizibu byankaga mu mukaaga byali biyimiridde ku nsonga enkyamu. Bali balwanda bikyamu ababirimu abakabaka yeka ne UPC bona bibaliko byali tubiri ku mulamwa gw'abantu baffe. So in that crisis, Idi Amin had been part of the faction of Obote. But now he overthrew the remnants of the UPC party that had started crumbling ever since 1966. At Idi Amin yali mu Chiwayi. Chiwayi, is it a fragment? It's a fragment. Idi Amin yali mu Chiwayi kimu kya UPC. Kati yajjako ebisigara bya UPC ebyali bisigaddewo. Idi Amin removed the remnants of the UPC because the UPC had started crumbling in 1966. Nadiope, one of the vice presidents, was in prison. Ibinjira, Secretary General, was in prison. Barak Chiria, so this was from 66. arrested not by anybody else, but by Boka Boka, our UPC. Why Robote and the sectarian groups of the 1962 were mistake makers? UPC ne DP bali munsobi bakozesa amadini bakozesa amawanga naye tugeza kukola nabo. They were mistake makers. But Amin was a disaster. Tiwali umuntu ali serious yalina kyako yali asobola okukola na Amin. We therefore, from the word go, decided to fight Amin, and also use those repeated mistakes of the sectarian groups to create a Ugandan-wide political military force to lift Uganda to higher and the more principled politics and the transformative economic strategy guided by what came to be known as the 4 principles of patriotism, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation and democracy. Amin okuyingira mu buyinza kyali kibi naye ate ffe twakirabamu omugaso. Twawalirizibwa okutandika okwenyingira mu kukola amagye n'ekibiina eky'abamwanayinki ne tuva ku biri bye twali tugezako okutiitiibya bya UPC, DP, Kabaka yeka. Twatandika line empya. Hence, we formed FRONASA, NRA, NRM in the 16 years between 1971 and 1986. Emyaka eyo 16 nsanvu okutuuka 86 twasobola okukolawo ejje epya n'ekibiina ekipya ekiyimiridde ku misingi ey'okwagala Uganda, kwagala Africa, okukyusa embeera y'abantu na democracy. Nevertheless, in all that time, we always tried to engage all the political groups of Uganda to see whether we could not form the widest possible alliance to help us transform Uganda. Hence, we engaged all the groups always, UPC, DP, Kabaka Yeka, the Nabodere group, etc. By 1986, when we defeated the remnants of the mistake makers of 1962, abantu bakola ensobi okuva 62 bali mu nsobi. Kati tutuuse emyaka 86, emyaka 24 tuli mu nsobi zokka. Bali ku mawanga, bali ku madiini, bye balimu. Emyaka 24 from 1962 to 1986. By 1986, when we defeated the remnants of the mistake makers of 1962, the colonial, neo-colonial economy of the 3 C's and 3 T's, the small enclave economy that was accommodating only 9% of the homesteads by 1962, had almost disappeared because of the bankruptcy and brutality of the Idi Amin group. Cotton and copper had collapsed, and so had tourism and tea. Only coffee and tobacco were still limping on. Therefore, our mission was now twofold. Kati 86 na twalina ebintu bibiri ebinene ebyokukola. Number 1, restore the small island of the 3 C's and the 3 T's where possible unnecessary, and 2, transform the whole of Ugandan economy and society as we had always intended. Kati jukira myaka gyenkaaga twali tetumatidde enzirukanya y'ensi n'enzirukanya y'ebyenfuna. Naye ate okuva 7 n'akatono akaaliwo byenkaaga amini yali akajjeewo. So now 86 twalina okukola ebintu bibiri eby'amaanyi. Okusooka okuzzawo kali akazinga k'abazungu ak'ennyuguta 3, emwanyi, pamba n'ekikomo kya kirembe, ate n'etaaba, caayi wamu n'obulambuzi. Kali akazinga k'ebyenfuna abazungu ke baali balese wano, ffe twali tutulaba nti akazinga ako tekamala. Naye ate Amini bwe yayingira akazinga n'akasanyawo. So now 86 we had now a double problem. Number 1, restore the okuzawo akazinga. Number 2, kukola ekyaffe kiri kye twali twagala okukola okuva edda, okukyusiza ddala ebyenfuna bya Uganda.